Hey everybody, this is Dr. Chris Dost. Welcome back to my channel, Biblical Languages and Literature. Before we get started with our video, let me just share with you a few of Sabra Global Education's exciting upcoming courses. First, starting April 24th, Rabbi Dr. Robert Harris of the Jewish Theological Seminary will be teaching an ongoing weekly course, the Book of Isaiah from yesterday to today. This course meets 1 hour per week and it is ongoing. This course is open enrollment, so you can start and stop at any time. Each week, Dr. Harris will work through the book of Isaiah methodically, periodically taking excursions into medieval, Jewish, and Christian interpretation. This course is not to be missed. On April 25th and April 26th, Dr. Paul Copan of Palm Beach Atlantic University will teach a mini-course, Did God Really Command Genocide? A detailed examination of Israel's wars against the Canaanites. The purpose of this course is to help one critically examine what the Hebrew Scriptures say and do not say about the wars against the Canaanites. And please be sure to check out some of our self-paced courses, including Dr. Stephen Notley's 4-part course, Jesus' Parables as Jewish Scripture. Dr. Jeffrey Garcia's course, The Dead Sea Scrolls and the New Testament. This course is designed for those who wish to develop a deeper understanding of the Jewish backgrounds of the New Testament. And Rabbi Dr. Robert Harris's The Passover Seder and the Last Supper, Jewish and Christian Traditions in Dialogue and Competition. And for those who are looking for private lessons, whether it be in foreign languages, art, music, math, study skills, and more, please check out our online lessons and tutoring page to find your personal teacher today. All right, let's get started.
Well, Robbie, thanks so much for making the time to be here and to share some insights about your upcoming course on Isaiah for Sabra Global Education. And I remember, I think it was back in 2007 when I took your Isaiah class.
Right. Did I give you an A?
I think I did get an A in that class, actually.
Excellent.
So
you deserved it.
You did right. Oh, yes, I'd like to think so.
Deserved it. Of course, the apple that you gave me was an inducement to giving you the higher grade. But
there we go. Yeah, an apple for the teacher, right? So, but yeah, that was really a transformative class for me because I was a newer master's student at JTS at the time, and having come from a Christian seminary, I had, understandably always kind of read Isaiah through the lens of, traditional Christian interpretation.
Sure.
And so in that course, we looked at the Isaiah diary, so the first 12 chapters or so. And that was the first time I had ever really began to think about who Isaiah of Jerusalem actually was, to what degree he composed the book or did not compose the book. And but also you brought in medieval interpretation. And so I think we spent more time than anything reading Ibn Ezra and his commentary. So we'll talk about that. Yeah.
Sure.
But talk to us a little bit about the person of Isaiah. So who is Isaiah of Jerusalem?
So my thinking, of course, was guided by the great H.L. Ginsberg, who, as we used to tease back in the day, actually wrote the Bible. Professor Ginsberg, who was the author of the essay that underlaid that first consideration that you gave, the so-called diaries of Isaiah ben Amoz. And he looked at those 12 chapters as the most, quote unquote, authentic core of the original 8th century prophecies. So I have almost always followed that in my own teaching of the book, and I'll explain a little more. The book of Isaiah, 66 chapters long, so it's a very long book. And almost all critical scholars, as well as Abraham Ibn Ezra in the 12th century, as you indicated, have looked at the book as two major blocks. One circled around the 8th century Isaiah ben Amoz, who lived in Jerusalem and prophesied there, and we'll come back to that. And the second block, beginning with chapter 40, a Persian era prophet, anonymous, so we call him Joe Anonymous, and his prophecies were, for one reason or another, attached to the collection of the 8th century Isaiah that had already come into existence, not as a canonical text per se, but something along the lines of a traditional text. And we see them kind of glommed onto the end. And we'll have to entertain to what extent do they understand each other, and I'll get back to that point as well. So the 8th century Isaiah ben Amoz was probably related in some degree or another to the Davidic household. He's very comfortable in the Jerusalem court and temple. And of course, the famous prophecy that we read about in chapter 6 is when he sees the heavenly temple to some prophetically degree superimposed on the earthly temple, and he sees God and he hears God inviting him to join in the heavenly discourse, Kadosh, 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 holy, 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 and we'll spend a good deal of time on that, as you could probably guess. So that Isaiah is both a supporter of the Davidic monarchy, but as well as a critic. And we see in him, like a different teacher of mine, Yochanan Mufs, as kind of a Talmud, a disciple of earlier prophets from the 8th century, Amos, or Amos we call him, and Hosea, who combined a kind of zealous, fervent belief in the God of Israel, Yod He Vav He, the Lord, along with a kind of a social critique that if you're going to worship the Lord, that's great. That's what you have to do. But you also have to be a good person and protect all the vulnerable of society, the widow, the stranger, the orphan, the landless, the poor, because it cannot be that the God of Israel would demand sole worship of him as the one and only God, and yet think that it's okay to be cruel to your neighbor. And Isaiah was one of the first in following these two earlier prophets to really combine that kind of message. And it resounds to this very day. So right after that, as we'll see, there were a series of prophecies ostensibly addressed to foreign nations or about foreign nations, and that forms another big block of material, chapters 13 to 23, I think. And then there's yet other material, 24 to 27, and etc., as the course will outline, that were regarded by the early tradition as authentic Isaiah prophecies, but had some other relationship to that original core of chapters 1 through 12. Anyone who opens up the book of Isaiah to chapter 36 through 39 notices that those are narratives in which Isaiah is featured. So it looks like some version of what we call the book of Kings, that the book of Samuel or Kings, that in which prophets appear in prophetical stories, like a Samuel or a Nathan or an Elijah or an Elisha. Isaiah appears in those stories, and they again are quite unlike everything that has occurred prior to that in the book. And then all of a sudden in chapter 40, it's no longer the 8th century. It is the 6th century, which we know because the prophet refers to Cyrus of Persia, who was king in the middle of the 6th century BCE. And the nature of this particular prophet is, and his prophecies are altogether a different emphasis than we'd seen earlier. And you took the Isaiah 1 class. When I teach Isaiah 2, I'll teach with chapters 40 to 48 as a real core element of these prophecies of consolation, mostly. It's these prophecies in particular where we'll see the real emphasis on monotheism, on the God of Israel as comforter of the distressed, right? And those are among the most significant prophecies for early Christianity, not just the famous Isaiah chapter 7, whether it's the virgin shall conceive or the young woman. Well, I know we'll talk about that, but these later prophecies, which are Christian exegesis regards as the suffering servant, right? The servant who suffers and is comforted.
This course is open enrollment, so you can start and stop at any time. Each week, Dr. Harris will work through the book of Isaiah methodically, periodically taking excursions into medieval, Jewish, and Christian interpretation. This course is not to be missed.